Welcome to the FFL Solidity team call. I'm really excited to be on with you guys today. I'm going into week 4 of December. So really what I'm going to talk about today is going to be mainly geared towards goals and mindset and essentially how they're all going to coincide together. At the end of the day, in this business and in life, we're only as strong as our weakest day in terms of mindset, right? So a couple of things that I'm going to be hitting on is I've always talked about this, and I don't, maybe you came from a practice company, maybe you were doing something before this or prior. And it's really important to remember, like, if you were winning at your whatever you were doing previous to this, I don't care if you were in the insurance industry or you were, you were serving tables or you were doing something completely different, or you were in medical school. It doesn't matter. We're only going to essentially change like when we're ready to change. And we're only going to want to adopt the mindset it takes to either build this business or grow as a personal producer when we actually dissect what's going on, right? So if you were a winner in your previous, whatever you were doing, whether you were a teacher, you were in medical school, you were a host, you were a server, you name it, you're probably going to be winning here. And it's typically because your mindset simply says, like, I win. Whatever I do, I'm good at, right? Whatever I go to work to do, I'm good at. Like, did I do a lot before I got into the insurance industry? No. But like, ask my old boss, he'll tell you I was the best server he had because I hustled, right? I didn't care. My mind was in the game. It was like, what's next? Even if the game was flipping tables. And it's really important to keep that same mindset when you're coming into this business. So we all essentially have to learn, grow, and develop in this business. And I don't care if you've been in the business for 3 hours or you've been in the business for 30 years. We're still going to have that curve because just like any other business, it's always adapting and evolving, right? And we have to adapt and evolve with it. So a couple of things we have to look at is, first and foremost, this upcoming year going into 2023, a lot of people are going to work harder on their jobs than they are on themselves. And here's the thing about that is if we flip that and we said, work harder on yourself than on your job is going to reap the rewards, right? So like, let's all keep that in the forefront of our heads, right? Work harder on yourself than on your job, regardless of what that is, right? So with that being said, where's my pace at, right? So like, whatever you're doing right now, where's my pace? Am I pacing high? Am I pacing low? Am I pacing smooth and steady? What does that look like, right? In anything that we're approaching, we need to approach it with confidence. In terms of this business, if you beat you beat the heck out of yourself every single week, every day, every time that something goes wrong, it's going to make it 1,000 times harder than it actually has to be, right? So like, don't let that one bad day, that one bad phone call, that one bad appointment lead to other things that are going to trickle into your business, right? So where's my pace at, right? And then allowing the experiences that you experience, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to help you or they're going to hinder you, right? Any experience you go through. I don't care if it's the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through line. If it takes too long in the drive-through line, you're like, I'm never going to that Dunkin' Donuts again. I was in the drive-through line where you can't exit for 30 minutes and I missed my first appointment, right? Like now you have a bad correlation with Dunkin' Donuts. Now, in this business, it's like you might wake up late. Okay, maybe your alarm clock was set for 5 a.m. and you woke up at 8:30 on a dial day. And now you're like, oh, well, it's 8:30, I'm late, and I already messed up my whole day. Well, now that you told yourself you messed your whole day up, that's exactly what's going to happen. Pick the phone up, get yourself together, right? Just because you're late, it doesn't mean that the day is ruined, right? So goes back to like, the agent, you're out in the field, you get a flat tire. Hey, if you run in the field a lot, you're going to be there. If you haven't, you will be one day. I'm sorry. I've been there many times. You get a flat tire. Now, are you going to decide you're never going to drive again? Or are you going to fix the tire, get back in the car and drive away, right? Like that's what we got to do. The same thing's going to come into play. We can use these same approaches essentially to positively manipulate, positively manipulate our own mindsets. And that's really what has to be done. And what I know is coming into this business when I was 19, 20 years old, like you better believe my mindset was like, it was like, oh, like, what song did Drake drop last week? It wasn't about how can I get better in this business, but what I had to realize was if I didn't focus on how I could get better in this business, it was never going to happen, right? So when you ask yourself, where's my pace at? You're more likely to make adjustments, right? Because everything starts with awareness. So if you're aware, you have to adjust things, you're a lot more likely to adjust them. If you're unaware and you're just like, oh, well, this sucks. The leads suck, I suck, whatever it is sucks, right? Well, I mean, that's great. At least you're aware of it. But the next question is, okay, well, what am I going to do about it? Right? So where's my pace at? Everything's going to start with awareness. If we have a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, how do we handle this? What does it look like? Right? Think about the last time you yourself got upset. What did it look like for you? Are you crazy out of control? Or are you able to tame yourself, calm down, and regroup, right? Because you're focusing on what you can control. And when we can focus on those, what we can control, we have the power stick, as I like to call it, the power stick. Okay. And the only way we can get the power stick is if we're able to focus on what we control. Don't beat yourself up. You had a bad day. Don't beat yourself up. Who's that helping? Right. So the things that I look at there is, okay, if you had a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, a bad appointment, a bad phone call, whatever it might have been, how long are you dwelling on that? Like, is it 1 minute? Is it 1 day? Is it a week? Is it a month? Like, how long are you actually dwelling on that? Truly. Because it might be the bad week that trickles into another bad week, to another bad week, to another bad week, because you're not tweaking and adjusting in small areas. And guys, why do I know that this is so true? Because I've done it. I've done it the right way and I've done it the wrong way. And I can tell you right now, looking at these things and just dissecting what's actually going on in your business internally is going to help you see things that you didn't even know were there, right? Like, I don't care if you're on this call and you know, in your staff, same exact thing. We all have to do this. It's just in a different manner, right? So how do we handle that? Do we beat ourselves up? Do we tie our identity to that, right? Some people are like, they'll call me brand new agent, like, Marysa, you know, I went into the first home and, you know, I couldn't close. The second home, the guy told me that, you know, he didn't have a bank. In the third one, they wouldn't give me their social security number. So, like, you know what? I think this just isn't for me. I think I have an in-home problem. Okay, first of all, you don't have an in-home problem. You only were in 3 appointments. I love you all. But my point is if we start identifying ourselves through 1 or 2 or whatever bad experience, quote unquote, that's how we're going to define ourselves. Versus if we look at ourselves like, you know, you want to be helping 50 families a month. I help 50 families a month. And guess what? I had an off day, but it doesn't matter because tomorrow is going to be a lot better, right? How do you look at things like when adversity arises, what does that look like truly for you? Like, what does it actually look like? And how long do you dwell on it? So yeah, we want to be aware of that. You know, where are the inconsistencies and why are they happening, right? So if you're inconsistent with dial day, right? If you're inconsistent with, you know, getting to, you know, wherever you're dialing, your office at 8 o'clock and getting on the phone by 8 o'clock, that's an inconsistency. It's small, but it's huge in the grand scheme of things, right? Another thing would be missing your first appointment. Now, like back in the day, I used to be like the queen of like, oh, like I'll get to my first appointment 30 minutes late because like I gave them a 30-minute window. It's my first appointment. It's the only one I have time control over. Why would I do that, right? So where are the inconsistencies and why are they happening? Because typically there's small things we can tweak and adjust and control. Now, I'm a believer that we can only control so many things. There's a lot of things that are out of our control. But the ones that are in our control, we have to take full advantage of those, right? Or our mindset's going to be somewhere else that we just definitely don't want it. This industry is definitely a thinking person's game. And really what I mean by that is you got to form the habit of like, do it anyways. Do it now, right? It's a thinking person's game in the essence of, like I said, where's my pace at? Where's my awareness at? You know, how do I react to adversity? Where are my inconsistencies? Why are they happening? Right? 3 words that changed my life are do it now. Right? I used to be the kind of person when I was like 21 to like 23, 24, I like to wake up at like 11, 12. I'd like, you know, I was hitting the snooze button because I was entitled. right? I'm over here making a great comp and, providing well for myself, where I'm just like, oh, let me get out of bed and just literally take advantage of this opportunity in the worst way, right? Like, why was I doing that? But until I could be aware of it and dissect it, I was never going to have any idea why I was doing it, right? So first thing's going to be awareness. It's a thinking person's game in the essence of do it now. If you're so busy that, like, if you book a schedule, right? And if you're on this call and you've booked a schedule that has 20 appointments, which for the most part, I think everybody on this call has, you know that during that day, you don't have a lot that you can think about, right? You have 20 appointments, your day is happening, and it's live, right? So my point is usually you don't have time to worry about A, B, C, D, E, F, G that you already don't have control over. So your mind doesn't have space for it. Build yourself into a place where you're so busy, you don't have time for that, literally. Like, all jokes aside, put yourself in a place where it's like, I don't have time for that right now because I have 5 new recruiting leads that came in and I need to call them. Put yourself in a place where it's, Mom, I love you, but I can't take the call right now. I'll call you back in a few minutes because I have to go into this appointment and I'm already 45 minutes late. Put yourself in that framework, and the way you look at yourself is going to be a lot better because now you're acting up to the standard of that helping 50 families a month producer, or that group that's, helping 200 families a month, or that group that's growing rapidly and about to hit their logo. Like, build yourself and act in a way of where you want to be now. And if you were there now, what would it look like and what would your consistencies look like? So again, 3 words that changed my life: do it now. John Maxwell. I went to a conference where he spoke. And he's always like one of my favorite authors. And for some of you guys that maybe don't read a whole lot on here, he has a lot of good stuff to say. Now, he'll be the first person to be like, what I say is extremely repetitive. It's not because it's not important. It's because it's not that deep, essentially. Like, the way our brains are wired and processed, for the most part, we've been able to recognize how we react to certain situations. If we can take that same thought process and say, okay, maybe you're the kind of person who, if somebody tells you to go fly a kite on the phone, you're going to take it personally. Okay, maybe the question is, how can I not take that personally? How can I work on getting better at not taking that personally, right? What are the most important habits that you need to form, right? It's funny because on the dial team this morning, it was like everybody in the office, like, so like in our office, it was like me, Christina, Gianna, Rami, Helena, to be fair, is usually on it, Sarah, and then you have Annabelle, right? Always showing up on time. That's why she's going to be a killer here. And then you got Heather Coletti on there showing up, even though has a million different things going on with her kids and doctors, but they're showing up. So it's like, if you're dialing, where are you at? Like, I love you all, but like, you're not on the dial team. So, what's the most important habit that you need to form? In my personal opinion, for a lot of us, it's simply, I need to get on the dial team. Because it's really confusing when I'm reaching out to agents, when I'm, wrapped up with my dials, and it's like, hey, Joe, how'd you wrap the day up? Joe's like, oh, you're never going to believe it. I got on the phones at 7:30. And it's like, okay, well, Joe, you weren't on the dial team, man. And guys, I'm not saying the dial team is the end all be all magic, but if you want hands-on interactive training, which if you're on this team to win, that's what you want, that's what you need, get on the dial team. No one's asking you to get on there live. You're getting on there to listen to other people and hold yourself accountable. That's why I love the fact that Heather Coletti's on the dial team each and every week. Like, she's accountable. I know I can count on Heather. Like, she's a team player, flat like that. Annabelle's going to be on the dial team. Since the day she got started, she's on the dial team at 8 a.m, period, end of story. And that's why they're winning, right? Annabelle's never been in the industry, and she's out there helping families each and every day. It's amazing. So it's like, what are the small things that you have to change, right? What's the most important habit that you need to form, right? So small disciplines matter the most. We've all heard this many times, and it's probably super played out. Our life is the sum total of decisions we make every day, and the decisions are determined by our priorities. Now, if your priority is not to provide for your family, or it's not to whatever. It's not to help other people. It's not to help other people be exposed to an opportunity. It's not to help, families. Where's your head at, right? Where are your priorities at? And I'm not saying that everyone's priorities need to be here at Family First Life, but also you have to wake up and realize if your priorities are not here, you're not going to get the results that say you prioritized it, right? Like I don't prioritize, like going, going tanning. Like that's why I'm really pale right now. Like it's just not on the priority list, not on the to-do list right now. It's out of priority, right? It's like, what are you prioritizing right now? And if whatever you're prioritizing, should your priorities change, or are they well in check? Some of them might be well in check. And then who do I need to be to accomplish this outcome? So like whatever you're looking to get out of this opportunity, and to end the year, we have 2 weeks in terms of the Family First Life calendar. So not, this team call or the following, that next team call, we're in a new year, guys. But that's still 14 full days. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to get started next year. Honestly, if you call my phone and tell me like, next year, I'm really going to put my head down. Don't call my phone. I'm going to hang up. Lost connection. Like, because here's the thing, guys, we need a running start, right? Like we can't, it's like when everyone goes back to the gym in January, but then in June, you're sitting in the gym and you're like, there's like 20% of the people maybe that were here on January 1st, right? Because now everyone's going to the gym, right? Don't be the person like, now everyone's going to start selling life insurance, on January 1st of 23. Like, do it now. Start doing it now. Start dissecting these things now. What do I need to change? Where am I at? Where do I want to be, right? So who do I need to be to accomplish this? So we're going to grow into the person that we need to be. And if we don't grow into that person, we're not going to be that person, so to say. And a lot of these things are going to come from just small habitual things. What are we doing? What are we telling ourselves? That's another big thing. If you wake up in the morning and you tell yourself every day, like, I hate my life, like you're gonna end up hating it. Like I promise. You know why? Because I did it to myself. I tortured myself for years. I hate my life. Like it was like the poor me party. And I'm like 21 years old. Like, like people would have killed to have been in my shoes when I was 21. And I'm like, oh, poor me. Like, it's like, stop. We all have our problems, guys. We all have them. We're always going to have them. And I can promise you that. But it's, how do I respond? Who do I need to be? And if you're not willing to grow, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder. And it's going to be a lot more mentally challenging because, again, I know I did it. To get to where you want to go, because you're going to start tricking yourself into, I can't do this because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. First, you'll blame the leads. Then you'll blame, me or your upline. And then you'll blame the company. Then you'll blame, Christina for fun. But at the end of the day, a lot of us, we have to look in the mirror and look at ourselves first, guys. Self-accountability to me is the most pristine thing that anybody can have. Like Rami says to me all the time, like, oh, you take too much self-accountability. I'm like, dude, there's no such thing as taking too much self-accountability. Now he says that because he's like, don't be hard on yourself. But at the same time, there's a difference between taking self-accountability and being hard on yourself. You can say, this week, I didn't pick the phones up and dial. And that's on me, right? That's not Christina's fault. That's not Gianna's fault. That's not Sarah's fault. That's my fault, right? When you can start doing that, you can start changing the narrative to the leads suck. The leads that you didn't dial on, is that those ones? Are those the ones you're talking about? Okay. I know, I figured, because if you give them to me, I'll book the appointments. Like, call me. I'm not kidding. So guys, it's like, we have to look at these things truly though. And we have to think like, what are we doing? Right? Are we holding ourselves accountable? And if we're not, these next 14 days before the year ends are 14 opportunities that we can reset or reprogram what we're trying to do. And then maybe we'll be right on that track to go into the year with some momentum, right? So accountability to negativity. How do you respond? Again, if something bad happens, how do you respond? I think my sister and I, we got really good at this over the years because Christina and I, we have each other, or we depend on each other, I should say, in terms of family. If something goes down, I'm calling Christina and vice versa. So the thing is like, even being in business now with Christina, there's a lot less calls that come through that are about, BS things that can be solved. You know why? Because I don't want to bother her about them, and she doesn't want to bother me about them. Now, Is it like, oh, I'm like, hey, don't tell me what's going on because I don't care? No, I'm just like, hey, don't tell me what's going on when I'm in the field and, I have 10 appointments and, I'm going to freak out and come home. Right. So how do we react when things happen? How do we respond to things that happen? Right. And does it hurt more the way you're responding? Right. So like just for an example, let's just say that, something bad happens. It could be you pick your rights, something bad that happens. Okay. And you're being so hard on yourself. You're telling yourself like, I should have did this. I could have done this better. It's all my fault. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's like, okay, well, now you just wrote yourself a false narrative, but at the same time, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt that person, right? Oftentimes we can get so caught up on what they have to say. They called me earlier and said A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Guys, I love you all. And this is why I say it. It's like, who cares what they think in that regard, first of all, but also it's who do I need to be coming out of this situation? If I normally, when Christina, I used to call Christina about everything because after my mom passed, like my mom used to be like, if I had $1 for every time you called me at work, like we'd be billionaires, and this is like, that's a fact, right? I'd be like, hey mom, I'm late for class. She'd be like, well, you better run, Now, I used to be able to call Christina for everything. And Christina would be like, okay, same thing. Like, I'm late, you better run, right? And she would call me too. But now it's like, hey, I'm not going to interrupt her day because I know it's going to intervene with her mindset. And now if we have that going on at home with somebody who's not in the business, we want to communicate that with them, right? Hey, it's really difficult for me to complete my tasks when I'm getting phone calls left and right about fill in the blank, right? So how do we respond? I mean, does it hurt you more than it hurts the other person? Maybe somebody's talking bad about you and it really hurt your feelings. We all got feelings, right? And maybe it's just making you think differently of yourself. Maybe you put yourself in a whole new category that's not a good one. Like, I'm a loser, I'm mean, I'm this, I'm that, whatever it might be. And that other person is chilling. You know what they did? They pointed a finger and they blamed somebody else. So again, no self-accountability was taken. When no self-accountability is taken, they typically will point a finger. Now, when that finger is pointed at you, how do you respond? Right? Like I used to respond like I care really bad, and depending on like now it's like unless somebody's hurt, which like that's completely different. I don't really care. Like say what you got to say because you know what? Here's what I do know is when I hold that in, it's going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt that person. So someone's talking bad about you and you call 18 people to talk about it, it's hurting you more than it's hurting the other person, right? So like how are you dealing with your own inner conflict, right? And I always go off of this, no one can torture you more than yourself. And I think that that's huge because it applies to everything in life. Like if you're going to torture yourself about dialing, just go home. Just go home and don't dial. If you're going to torture yourself about what happened last week, I mean, you can dwell there, but nothing good seemed to have been living there or you'd be happy about it. My point is no one can torture you more than you because your mindset. Wherever your mindset at is, your body's going to meet your mind where it's at, right? A lot of us have to just tap back into our mind and realize we have the power stick, as I'd call it. And when we give the power stick away to somebody else, that's the only time that we don't have a voice anymore, right? So don't give the power stick away. You're in control of your life. You're in control of what you do and what you don't do, right? Self-accountability. And what I can tell you guys too is even the first time that you take self-accountability and it doesn't feel that good to say, it was my fault and I could have done better, you're going to feel better about yourself because you were honest, right? You're going to feel better about it because you were honest with yourself. It's not like you're on the phone with your mentor like, yeah, today, Rami, I made 300 dials and I talked to, 45 people and I booked 0 appointments. Like, okay, like that probably didn't happen. Like it probably didn't happen, right? So meet your mind where it's at. No one can torture you more than you. And don't make up stories. Like, and I say this with all love because I used to think my mentor wanted to hear like the right answer. Your mentor needs to hear what is actually going on, or they can't help you. And sometimes it can be really hard, and you might have to be a lot more vulnerable than maybe you're used to being. But it's like open up, right? Because if we can't meet you where you're at, we can't help you get to where you want to go. And also, if you're lying to yourself about the activity that you are or you aren't doing, again, reality check, guys. We got to look in the mirror. Like, what am I doing? What am I not doing? Right? What type of self accountability did I take this week? That is one question that I ask myself every week. And sometimes it's good self accountability, but sometimes it's not. It's like, hey, you know what? I learned this week, but I learned that, maybe the way that I approach things in this arena could be better, right? Like I learned that, my final expense clients typically don't want to leave a legacy, right? Like that's just not it, right? So whatever it might be, right? You learned and you're self accountable, but you're learning through it. And put your blinders on. If I can't control it, I don't focus on it, right? Like it used to be like the queen of like, I wanted to control everything that was out of my control. And I've been told before that if you want to be in control that often, it's typically because you are out of control. So again, it's just these small self-check measures that we have to do. And do any of these things make us like a bad person? Absolutely not. But they make us an aware person. And an aware person is ready to attack, right? Like when Paul Revere was like, the British are coming, like we were ready to go, right? If Paul Revere was never like, the British are coming, right? Straight up, there's no awareness. No awareness. No one would have been aware. No one would have been ready, right? But thanks to Paul Revere, because he brought awareness to everyone's face, the British are coming, and like we were more ready than we were going to be, right? So with that being said, sometimes the things that you fear is building perseverance, right? It's like building up that willingness to be stronger than you've ever been, building up the willingness to persevere through a really hard time in your life, building up the willingness to persevere through a learning curve, to persevere through talking to a mentor or having a mentor because you've never had one, the perseverance of growing into the position that you're in. There's a lot of things that we have to persevere through. But again, it's up to us. We can torture ourselves or we can go through it. Because either way, you got to walk through it, right? And for me, I would rather run through it, right? So like if you can walk through fire or run through fire, which one are you doing? Like I'm right. I think we're all right. So think about that. So sometimes the thing that you fear is building perseverance because it's scary, it's hard, it's habits, it's daily disciplines that are changing. And last thing I really want to hit on is, expectations. Again, put the blinders on, take your emotions out of it. Like no one cares, and I say this with all love because no one cares what I did either, by the way, last year, last decade, last month, last week. No one cares. Like, let's all move forward, right? Like forward mindset, right? So expectations are to stop being, if you are emotional in this business and you're emotional, because we've all been out there. Like I've been like, hey, Sean, I know I'm wicked emotional in this business. She's like, well, until you can't be, I don't know. That's on you, right? So essentially, it's like, put the blinders on, take the emotions out of it. Are you willing to commit? Are you willing to interact in the training? And are you willing to plug in? Because if you're willing to do those three things, typically you're going to be willing to do what we just went through, right? So strictly focus on numbers. Now, guys, when we talk about like dial trackers, right? Like if I talk to an agent, I'm like, how many dials did you make? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, I lost service. I'm like, oh, I have to go. I recorded because you don't care. We can't care more than you, right? Like, and I say that with all the love. Like if I call Paul and say, hey, Paul, I was just calling you because I'm not sure why I can't book a full schedule, right? But I don't know how many dials I made. I don't know how many leads I bought. I don't know how many. I don't know how many appointments I had set up last week. Like, okay, bro, like, are you tracking anything? Right? Like Paul will be like, well, call me when you know. Like that's exactly what he was saying. Well, you should probably start knowing that stuff and call me back, like I can't help you. And that's just the dead honest truth, guys. So when we can take our emotions out of it, put our mindset in a clear zone of like, hey, there's a lot of wins that we can have, but you have to set yourself up for a win. You have to go into a win with momentum, right? Like, a lot of times games are won in like after halftime. Like there was a World Cup game, and I typically don't watch the World Cup, but it was on and around, I guess. And Rami, if you want to help me out with this one, Morocco was facing, I don't know, another country that they were Rami, what
France.
country was it? This is the one that they won?
No, they lost yesterday.
Rami,
They
I'm not
beat
talking about that. The
okay,
other
one
one.
second. They beat Italy, I think. No, 1 second. I don't
Okay,
know that
so
match. They beat a few They beat a few teams, but they went pretty far. They went to the
Portugal.
semifinals. Who
what
was
was
it?
it, Avi?
They beat Portugal.
Portugal. Yes, that was it. Yep. Thank you, Avi. So Morocco was playing Portugal in the World Cup. And again, forgive me if I'm wrong on the team, but essentially they were not favored to win at all. Now they didn't win, and they didn't win in the first half, the second half, right? They won in like the penalty time. I don't know a lot about soccer, but here's what I know is they were the underdog by far, and they won. And the other team was wicked mad. And honestly, I was kind of like, damn, I'm kind of mad for them. But go Morocco, because they kept going. They stood up for what they believed in, right? So my point is you win your game, not at the beginning, not at the end, in the middle. Like, you win the game in your mind. When you can win the game in your mind, you can win this game. This is all mindset. And that's why sometimes you might feel like I got completely spun off track, right? You might be like, I'm on like a whole different planet. I can't even start this again. It's going to be like starting over. That's okay. You did it once. You can do it again. It's going to be easier this time, right? So a couple of things that I'm just going to hit on. A couple, if you're taking notes, which I hope you are, a couple of things that help me kind of dissect where my brain is at. I'm just going to read them off. It's like a couple quick questions I ask myself. What are the 3 biggest struggles I'm dealing with? 3 biggest stressors? 3 things that I wish I did every single day? 3 things that I'm thankful for? 3 things I enjoy? 3 things I wish that I could change? 3 things that I wish I could change about other people? 3 goals I want to achieve before going into 2023? And 3 goals I want to implement today. You're not successful for any reason.
You said those really, really, really fast.
Fair enough, Heather. I'm like, good thing it's recorded, but I know you guys like pumped my fingers. I'm gonna rip those through one more time though, guys. Okay. So 3 biggest stressors, 3 biggest struggles, 3 things that you wish you did every day, 3 things you're thankful for, 3 things I enjoy, 3 things I wish I could change, 3 things I wish I could change about other people, 3 goals I want to achieve before going into 2023, and 3 goals I want to implement today. So those questions I find myself going back to often, and I actually did these today, and it was helpful because it helps you open up your own brain to what's actually going on, right? It's like, you ever like, I don't know, I just don't feel good today. And you're like, someone's like, oh, why? Like, you have a headache, stomach hurt? You're like, no, I don't really know. I just don't really feel good today. It's like, same thing. You have to start asking your body, like, what's going on, right? We have to start asking our minds, what's going on that we're having a mental block? Is it something that somebody said to us? Are we being easily offended? So again, you're not successful for any reason but yourself. Change your thinking, change your life. Literally, truly, I did it, and I'm thankful I did. And if I didn't, it's like I don't know what that would look like today, but it just wouldn't be pretty. It would not be pretty at all. It would be a disaster zone. So I'm very thankful that I changed a lot of things because I wouldn't be on this call with you guys today. But really, that's what I have. I'm really looking forward to going into 2023 with all of you guys. One thing I would highly, highly encourage is set goals for yourself. These I like because they're short-term things that help us dissect where our mind is at, those last things that I hit on. But it's really important to stay in tune with what's going on in your mind and what can we control, what can we not control, and learning how to let go of what we can't control, whatever that looks like. Might not be easy in the process, but being aware is going to be the key.